What's goody? It's your host Jay Rose as always, and free agency popped off a couple of days ago. I waited so we could get some more deals out, but now I'm gonna give my tier list on each team and how I think they've been doing in free agency so far. Let's get into it. All right, so here's a tier list. I'm not going in order of the tier list. I have a website up showing me all the deals that have been done, so I'm gonna go based off of that. First, we have the Atlanta Hawks, who got Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance Jr. They traded away DeJounte Murray. I'm not impressed with that deal. I like the Dyson Daniels pickup because he's a nice young player. I'm still not entirely sure where the Hawks are going. I feel like the fact that they did not pick up Alexander Sarr and instead picked up Zachary Richard, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The fact that they picked up Zachary Razasher instead of Alexander Sarr kind of leads me to believe that they want to rebuild because, you know, obviously with Trae Young, you'd want to have a nice center around him, and they didn't go that route. I know that he didn't want to work out for them or whatever the case may be, but I don't think this is a great deal for DeJounte Murray. I don't think his value might have been the highest, but I'm not really impressed with the deal. I'm sure they have more moves in store, but they've had a very quiet free agency. I'll give it a C. Now for the Boston Celtics, I'm not gonna lie, I have to give the Boston Celtics an S. And you're probably like, what deals did they do? Bro, they got Derek White to sign a 4-year extension, which my whole thing was, this team cannot be here together that long because they have a lot of money cooped up in a lot of guys, and they're not going to be able to extend everybody. They signed Jason Tatum to a 5-year supermax, and then they signed Derek White to a 4-year extension worth like $120 million or something like that. So he took a decent pay cut, but he still made a lot of money. So I'm not sure where all the money is coming from, but shoot, they made it work, and now everybody on that team is locked up for a couple of years. They got Luke Cornett back. They just brought back their roster, so that's great stuff from the Celtics. They don't really need to make many moves. For the Brooklyn Nets, I want to give them an A, or I'm going to give them an S. Honestly, I'm going to give them an S. I'm glad that they picked a lane. I'm glad that they finally let go of Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges on the Nets was not going to do anything. And they got back a haul. They got 5 picks from Mikal Bridges, so I can only say that that's a W. I'm glad they finally went in rebuild mode. They are looking to trade guys like Ben Simmons and Dorian Finney-Smith, guys that should not really be on a team. They kind of reversed the damage that they did with KD and Kyrie with all those picks they gave up for Harden. So I give them an S for that. Charlotte, I'm not gonna lie, I need an F tier. There's teams that aren't really doing anything, and I feel like Charlotte is a team that I would have expected to at least make a playoff berth these last couple of years. I know LaMelo's been hurt, and they just drafted Brandon Miller, who looks really nice, but overall they don't really make moves in the offseason to get any better, and that's been a problem they've had for years on end at this point. Chicago Bulls, they traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey. They got Jalen Smith on a 3-year deal, and they got Patrick Williams returning on a 5-year deal. I like re-signing Patrick Williams, and I do like the Jalen Smith deal, but getting rid of Caruso does kind of suck for the package that you got back. I feel like especially trading with Oklahoma City, you should have at least got a couple of picks back in return. I don't think that's a good haul. You gave up one of the best defensive players in the league and didn't get any draft capital at all, and I think that's very suspect, especially for a team that's going into rebuild mode. You don't have many avenues to trade Zach LaVine. It seems like they're trying to throw a first on him to get the contract off the books. You didn't trade DeMar, so he's just gonna walk. You didn't trade Drummond last year, so he walked. He went to Philly. It's just not a good look. It's not a good look for Chicago. I'm not a big fan of what they got going on over there right now. They're not getting the head start that like the Brooklyn Nets got. They didn't even get a pick out of any of their deals yet. They're trying to give up a pick to get Zach LaVine off the roster. I'm going to give them a D. Cleveland Cavaliers re-signed Donovan Mitchell to a 3-year extension. I'm glad they did that. I think that's an unpopular take, though, because a lot of people do want Donovan Mitchell to get traded off that team. They don't feel like that's going to be a contender. And in my opinion, I think everybody else but Donovan Mitchell should get traded if you're looking to do that. Donovan Mitchell is one of the most underrated players in the NBA, in my opinion. And a star with his talent does not just walk up into Cleveland it just doesn't happen. Like that's a very, very talented player that Cleveland has on their roster. He's the best player by far and wide. He's in his prime. He's not old. So I'm like, why are we gonna trade him and try to still build with Darius Garland if this is higher than Darius Garland's ceiling? Like, I don't think Darius Garland will ever be as good as Donovan Mitchell currently is. So being that he has value, Allen has value, say get rid of those guys. Let Evan Mobley play the center, and let's build a roster focused around Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, and build around that. They haven't done anything else besides that, I don't believe, so I'm not really inclined to give them any higher than a C, but I do like the fact that they re-signed Donovan Mitchell. Next up is the Mavericks, who got Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall, and Klay Thompson. We did end up losing Josh Green and DJJ. The DJJ hurts me a lot. I became a big fan of DJJ this past season. He's very electric, great defender. But what I've seen from Najee Marshall is that he can do a lot of the stuff that Derrick Jones Jr. did do in terms of the defense. And he's also a far better shooter. He shot around 38% from 3 last season to Derrick Jones is like 34. So that's clearly an upgrade. Quentin Grimes is a great shooter. He didn't have a great showing on the Pistons, but on the Knicks, he's also up around 38. And we got Klay Thompson, who's one of the best shooters in the NBA, period. So regardless of any woes that may or may not come with Klay Thompson, I think him being in a reduced role will help him play better defense. And we just picked up 3 great shooters / defenders. So I think that this is definitely an upgrade. I feel like this is a team that just went to the finals and we got better. And in the Western Conference, that's ever so moving, and every team is getting better. You have to continue to do that. So I'm happy with the moves that were made. Hopefully we can get another maybe power forward, mobile power forward to guard that spot. But I'm happy with the moves that the Mavericks made. I'll give it an A. Denver. Oh my goodness, Denver. F. Like I said, the Western Conference is already stacked. Teams are getting better. And what is Denver doing? Nothing. They're not even re-signing their players. They lost Bruce Brown last year. They lost KCP this year. They made no moves. They're trying to get Westbrook, which I don't even think really fits their system. I'm not seeing the vision with Denver, bro. Like last year, y'all were in the finals. This year, you didn't make it to the finals, and you lost another piece. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think Denver is a top 3 team in the West right now. I'm taking the Mavericks, I'm taking the Thunder, and I'm taking the Timberwolves over them as of right now. Next up, we have the Detroit Pistons, who signed Cade Cunningham to a 5-year extension. They got Tim Hardaway Jr., they got Tobias Harris, and they got Wendell Moore Jr., and I will give the Pistons a B. I think the Pistons desperately needed offense, so them getting Tim Hardaway Jr., even though I don't think he was a great fit on our team, and I think he takes his shot selection's a little shaky. Cade Cunningham needs the spacing, absolutely. So putting Tim Hardaway Jr. in the starting 5, putting Tobias Harris in the starting 5, that is automatically going to give that team so much more spacing and give Cade Cunningham more room to operate. And honestly, that's going to really give you a chance to see what this roster can really do. I didn't think that their team construction was bad enough for them to be the worst team in basketball last year, but it happened. I think this year, with the moves that they made, they'll fare a lot better with the spacing. Next up is the Golden State Warriors. F. And you know what? I'm going to make another tier, bro. F minus. You know why? Because these teams, the Hornets and the Nuggets, they didn't do anything. The Warriors are doing things, and they're all stupid. They completely waived Chris Paul, even though they got offered Zach LaVine in a first-round pick for Chris Paul, which it would be immensely better than anything that they could have gotten for Chris Paul. And next to Steph Curry, I think that would have been pretty cool. That's still 2 of the best shooters in the league, especially if you're going to lose out on Klay. I'll get to that in a second. But they just completely disregarded that trade deal and got rid of Chris Paul for nothing. They just let him walk. I'm not a big fan of when teams do that. And then they traded Klay Thompson, and I'm thinking, you're trading with the Mavericks. We have a couple of decent pieces that you may want to pick up. Josh Green, a Maxi Kleber. You know what I'm saying? Maxi Kleber would fit very well in your system. Josh Green, I feel like a good plug and play player on your team would be a little bit better than like a Gary Payton II, and he would play that kind of role for you. Instead, we do a 3-team deal where Josh Green gets sent to Charlotte, and then the Warriors get 2 second-round picks for Klay Thompson. And then they signed DeAnthony Melton too. If I'm Steph Curry, I'm pissed. That's all I got to say about that. If I'm Steph Curry, I am pissed. Because what are we doing? What are we actually doing? Next up, we got the Houston Rockets, who honestly didn't really do much either, which I don't really think they need to do anything right now. They got Aaron Holiday returning on a 2-year deal, and they got AJ Griffin from the Hawks. I think this is a team where they're more like, let's go into next season and let's see what we can do. The Indiana Pacers, they got Pascal to return on a 4-year deal, and either, even though I personally think most teams would not pay Pascal Siakam that money, they kind of needed to. They kind of needed to. And I can't remember what they gave up for Pascal, to be honest. But Pascal showed his ass in the playoffs. He played very, very well. I think the synergy between him and Tyrese is really good. I think next year they're going to be a great team in the Eastern Conference. And yeah, you just need to re-sign your guys. So I'll give them a B for that. I might even give them an A. They got Obi Toppin back as well. I think giving Indiana an A is fair. Because if they didn't re-sign Pascal Siakam, I think that would have been a really, really big issue. So I'll give them an A for that. This team, I'm very conflicted about this team. The Los Angeles Clippers signed Mo Bamba to a 1-year deal, Nicholas Batum to a 2-year deal. They got Chris Dunn. They got James Harden on a 2-year deal, Derrick Jones Jr. on a 3-year deal, and Kevin Porter Jr. on a 2-year deal. Ask Clipper fans, and they're like, oh my God, my GM is cooking. This is great moves. I can't believe he did all of this and waited for Paul George to leave. My thinking is like, none of these players are like good for real. And I think that's really the main sentiment of all these pickups. Mo Bamba played defense, Nick Batum played defense, Chris Dunn plays defense, Derrick Jones Jr. plays defense. And then they picked up a decent scorer in KPJ. They re-signed James Harden. I'm not a big fan of any of these though. I don't think any of this is moving the needle. You lost a guy like Paul George, and now you have to run James Harden as your number 2 option, and I don't think James Harden in 2024 is a number 2 option. I don't know. I've seen a lot of Clippers fans going, but the Mavs just made the finals with this formula. The Mavericks have 2 of the best offensive weapons in the NBA. Luka Doncic is dropping 30-point triple-doubles every night, and Kyrie on what he's supposed to be doing every night is giving you like 26, 6, around there. I don't think James Harden is getting you over 25 points. I don't think that's going to happen, even if as a number 2 option. I don't think he's going to average that anymore. I don't think that's his body. Kawhi, I think Kawhi can absolutely average over 25. It's a matter of, is he going to play or not, which kind of really throws a wrench in a lot of this. I did all that talking. I didn't put him in a spot. I'm going to put him in C, bro. I don't think those moves were anything for real. The Lakers, F. I low-key want to give y'all an F-, but it's not as bad as the Warriors. Y'all just didn't do anything. Yeah, re-signed Max Christie. Yeah, picked up JJ Redick. That's your offseason. They tried to get Clay, struck out. They tried to get Jonas. He went to the Wizards, which is so crazy. They tried to get who else did they want? They wanted James Harden. He re-signed back to the Clippers. Right now, they're in talks about trading D'Angelo Russell for DeMar DeRozan, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think D'Lo played very well last year, and he just had his lapses in the playoffs. I don't think the spacing with DeMar is going to be the greatest thing in the world. I already don't really enjoy the Lakers spacing as is because Anthony Davis kind of forgot how to shoot. LeBron is the best shooter on the team right now, more or less. I don't want to give the Lakers an F solely because I don't think they're a bad team as constructed, contrary to popular opinion. I think if they played a lot of other teams in the Western Conference, like I think they beat the Thunder pretty easy. I think they beat the Timberwolves pretty easy as well. I think the Lakers were a very underrated team, and because they went out in the first round, they don't get a lot of credit. But I think that this is a decent team. They obviously need to make some moves, so I'm not going to give them an F. I'll give them a D. The Grizzlies, F. They didn't do anything, literally. The Miami Heat, F-, dog. F-. I'm sorry. They did do things. They got Kevin Love on a 2-year deal. They got Drew Smith, Zion Pullen, and Kashad Johnson. F-, bro. Milwaukee Bucks, F-. Oh my goodness, F-. Wow. Milwaukee, even though Milwaukee had a high seed last year, it's clear that there's something wrong. There's things wrong with that team. And I'm very concerned with Giannis. Giannis has been on a Joel Embiid type of injury run right now. Once we get to the playoffs, Giannis has not been there the last 2 years. So I just need this team to know that they have to surround their 2 stars with more than what they have. They're trying to get rid of Brook Lopez. They need a better 2 guard. That Malik Beasley and Damian Lillard backcourt was terrible on defense, and that made their team defense as a whole drop severely. Especially with Doc Rivers there. They went from a top offense with a bad defense to a bad offense with a bad defense. So I'm going to need them to pick up the pace, you know what I mean? I think Damian Lillard started to get more comfortable and definitely turned it up in the playoffs, so we'll see what they do next year. But with no moves made, I'm very disappointed in the Bucks. Very disappointed. The New Orleans Pelicans, they got DeJounte Murray, but they also lost like everybody else. They lost Najee Marshall. They traded Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance. They're trying to trade Brandon Ingram. They lost Jonas Valanciunas. I don't think getting DeJounte Murray offsets everything that you lost. They don't have a center right now. They have CJ at the 2, DeJounte Murray at the 1, They have Zion. They're trying to trade BI. And they have like just Trey Murphy left pretty much off the bench. DeJounte Murray was a good pickup, but they lost a lot. I'm gonna give them a D. The New York Knicks got Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. They did strike out on Isaiah Hartenstein, so they do desperately need a center, and I'm gonna put them in A. If they can find a way to get a big man, because I think they desperately need one. They have Mitchell Robinson, but Mitchell Robinson, as we know, barely plays basketball. I'm gonna give it S. Because I didn't think they were going to be able to get OG and Mikal. I think their defense is going to look absolutely ridiculous, but they still do need that anchor. If it so happens that Mitchell Robinson can have a healthy season, or Jericho Sims takes a jump, or they sign somebody that makes a big difference, and they're going to have a lineup looking like Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, and then they got DiVincenzo and Josh Hart off the bench. Crazy team. Absolutely crazy team. I love what they did. The OKC Thunder, I got to give them an S too. I got to give them an S. They fleeced the Bulls. They got Alex Caruso for a player that they didn't want. They got Isaiah Hartenstein. Maybe a bit of an overpay, but they needed that center. And that's exactly what I wanted them to do, was get a center and move Chet over to the 4. They got 2 7-footers in the paint right now, and Chet is going to be a perfect stretch 4. And then they got their young guys, their young role players, Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins. They got them to re-sign on 4- and 5-year deals. So, yeah. The Thunder absolutely deserve an S in my opinion. The Orlando Magic, they got Caldwell Pope, Gary Harris comes back, and they got Goga Badatsi. I give them a B for that. They absolutely did need the shooting that came with KCP. Their spacing was not the greatest. They needed a point guard really bad. They need an offensive-minded point guard. They have a big problem with their guards, Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony and them. They're good defenders. They give a lot of energy, and they can give you offense in spurts, but I think they need a consistent guy who can run the offense and get him his own buckets, because that's just a huge issue that they have. I don't think Paolo should be your number 1 ball handler. Philadelphia 76ers, I'm not giving them an A. They got Drummond, which is a great pickup. They got Paul George, Eric Gordon, Tyrese Maxey, signed a 5-year extension, and they got Kelly Oubre back. So all in all, I think they might have an A. The only thing I'm iffy about is the Paul George contract, because he's gonna get paid a pretty penny until he's 38 years old. They're gonna have to be paying a 38-year-old Paul George. But at that same token, I'm glad they picked a side. I'm glad that they're trying to maximize Joel Embiid's time, because I don't think he's gonna have a lot of it left, given the injuries that he keeps having. And this does that for them. So they're making really good moves to become a contender in the Eastern Conference again. And the way that they went to war with the Knicks, I think adding Paul George, if he can, play up to his standard, and if Embiid is healthy, this team is going to look really, really, really good. The Phoenix Suns, F-. Bol on a 1-year deal, Colin Gillespie, and Mason Plumlee. I made a whole video on the Suns. I don't really have to say much about this. F-. The Portland Trailblazers got Denny Abdia, and they got Justin Minaya. I don't even know who Justin Minaya is, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I do like the Denny Abdia pickup, so I'll give them a B for that. Sacramento Kings get Alex Len, Jalen McDaniels from the Raptors, and Malik Monk comes back. I think Malik Monk coming back is big, because if they lost out on him, that's a lot of offense you're losing out on. But as a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, for you to make no significant differences in your team, I'm not sure where y'all go from here. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but yeah, like, you literally missed the playoffs last year, and you're coming back with the same exact roster. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but there's still teams, like, if I gave the Lakers a D, I kind of have to give Sacramento a D. The Lakers at least made the playoffs, and they gave the Nuggets a scare. But these are both teams that need to make some moves to get better. I feel like, to go in your direction that you need to get to, all 3 of these teams. Next up, the Spurs got Chris Paul, and that's about it. I'll give them a B for that. Wemby getting a point guard is huge. I still think they need to make another deal. I'm not liking the core that they have around him. I think Devin Vassell needs to stay. Chris Paul is a good pickup, but Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan, I think they can get him out of there. They have a lot of picks too, and I think you can convince a team to make you believe that those are valuable picks as well. And honestly, if they got Lauri Markkanen, that would be huge. I think Victor Wembanyama is going to be a top 10 player next year, so having a good playmaker next to him and possibly making more moves would be very beneficial. Toronto, they got Scotty Barnes. They got Davion Mitchell from the Kings. They re-signed Emmanuel Quickly. They got Garrett Temple. I think the Raptors did a decent job, especially making sure that Scotty Barnes and quick comeback. I think they already made their moves that they needed to make during the regular season, so just making sure everybody comes back is a good move for them. The Utah Jazz, y'all are like in no man's land. I'm gonna need y'all to pick a side. Colin Sexton, you can trade Lauri Markkanen. You can get a lot of picks and really start a rebuild with the pieces that you have on your team, and they're just not doing it. I think, especially now that you know that Keontae George is very decent, I'd try to start my rebuild, absolutely, but that's just what it is with them right now. The Washington Wizards got Malcolm Brogdon, Rashawn Holmes, and Jonas Valanciunas, and they traded away Denny Avdija. That was literally stupid. That's so stupid. You signed Jonas Valanciunas for what? For what? And they drafted Alexander Sarr, right? F-. Sorry. And then we got to give Minnesota an F. They didn't do anything, and I feel like Minnesota is another one of those teams that absolutely needs to make some moves. They're not in the clear. As much as Minnesota fans want you to believe that they're in the clear, their team is good, but they need to do something. They absolutely need to do something. Maybe F is a bit harsh, but they literally didn't do anything. They're not even on the list. They did nothing. They're a very good team, but you're not in the clear in any way, shape, or form. So this is not a team that you can just run it back and I don't think have championship aspirations. How much better are you expecting Anthony Edwards to get? He already averaged 26, 27 points, and then in the playoffs he upped it. So unless you're expecting either A, Anthony Edwards to take like an unusually huge jump and become like a demon type player, or B, you're expecting Rob Dillingham to come in and be amazing, I'm not seeing how you make no moves. Your team has no depth. You have no wings. I'm not really seeing how you came out of last season, saw how you lost, saw how the team that beat you lost, and made no moves. This is the tier list right here. We got, as you can see, S tier teams, A tier teams, and Warriors, Miami, Bucks, Phoenix, and Washington are the worst teams this free agency. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is going to take me absolutely forever to edit. 30-minute long recording session. You love to see that. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna catch you on the next one.